Oh my God!
This terrifying clip is actual footage from the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Sadly, this is the horror that people experience much too often in our society. Hi, my name is Angela Farizzi. Every day, 96 Americans are killed with guns and hundreds more are shot and injured. Wide access to firearms and loose regulations leads to more than 30,000 people killed by guns each year in the U.S. Gun violence affects not only those who are shot, but their loved ones, witnesses, and those who fear another shooting. The statistics associated with this are overwhelming. 1/3 of gun deaths in the U.S. are homicides, which is 25 times the rate in other wealthy countries. And the other 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides, which is 8 times the rate in other wealthy countries. Access to a gun increases the risk of suicide by 3 times. Most people who attempt suicide do not die unless they use a gun. Out of all suicide attempts not involving a firearm, less than 5 result in death, whereas 85 of suicide attempts with a gun do result in death. While most gun violence does not involve a mass shooting, in 2017 there were 346 mass shootings resulting in 437 deaths and over 1,800 injured. On top of this, gun violence cost the U.S. $229 billion in 2015, which is an average of $700 per gun in the country. Society loses out too, including work loss, medical and mental health care, emergency transportation, police and criminal justice activities, insurance claims processing, employer costs, and decreased quality of life. This is self-explanatory to why America needs better gun laws. So who is most affected by gun violence? People between the ages of 15 to 24 are most likely to be targeted or murdered than any other age group. 65 gunfire incidents occurred on school grounds in 2017, and there have been 56 in 2018 so far. In the U.S., gun violence is a major public health problem. Amanda Macmillan shares many statistics for proving why. An alarming piece of information is the fact that of the 30 leading causes of death in the U.S., gun violence is the least researched. From 2004 to 2015, gun violence received only 1.6% of the funding that it should have compared to the other causes of death with similar mortality rates. House Democrats even released a statement saying, "We dedicate $240 million a year on traffic safety research, $233 million a year on food safety, and $331 million a year on effects of tobacco, but almost nothing on firearms, which kill 33,000 Americans annually." Additionally, 54% of U.S. gun owners reported that they do not store their guns safely, meaning in a locked gun safe, locked into a gun rack, or stored with a trigger lock. Some gun owners with children under 18 living at home are more careful, but there are still 45% that admit to not using safe storage techniques. Dr. Cassandra Profazzi, an assistant professor with Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Policy and Research, states that household gun ownership can increase risk of homicides, suicides, and unintentional shootings in the home. Practicing safe storage decreases these risks. An interesting area to explore is gun shows. According to the Annals of Internal Medicine, more than 4,000 are held annually in the U.S. and account for almost 10% of yearly firearm sales. In 2017, they found that when gun shows are held in Nevada, gun-related deaths and injuries increased by 70% in nearby California communities in the next 2 weeks. However, there was no increase found following California gun shows, which, unlike Nevada, California places strict regulations. For example, California performs background checks on all gun sales and transfers, while Nevada did not. This proves that stricter regulations can be effective to help save lives from unnecessary gun violence. So who has guns and how are they getting them? According to studies done by the National Institute of Justice, young adults and juveniles can get guns illegally, and most of them report that they use these guns for self-defense. One study revealed that a higher percentage of arrestees have firearms more than regular citizens do. Surveys of offenders say that they often steal or borrow guns, but most of them are acquired off the street or through the illegal gun market. Gun violence not only involves handguns, but also semi-automatic weapons. Parkland, Florida, and the other deadliest shootings in U.S. history all have one thing in common. That is the AR-15. The AR-15 semi-automatic rifle is the civilian semi-automatic version of the military's M16. In Florida, a minor can buy a rifle like the AR-15 with only a parent's consent. Florida wouldn't have had required fingerprinting, a special permit, or even a waiting period before Cruz bought his AR-15, the 19-year-old accused of Parkland's school shooting. I find it interesting that I need fingerprinting to just volunteer in a school, but to buy an assault weapon, you don't. As you can see in this chart, this is common in some parts of the U.S. where you can walk in and out of the store in minutes with a semi-automatic weapon in your hands. In Orlando, it took just 38 minutes to buy an AR-15, only 2 days after the shooting spree that killed 49 people at the city's Pulse nightclub, according to the Huffington Post. Gun laws vary significantly based on the state. 8 states impose waiting periods for the purchase of some or all firearms, but in the states with less regulations, buying a firearm is a straightforward and speedy process. 33 states allow private sellers to sell guns without even doing any type of background check. As the U.S. continues to stall on gun control talks, the largest study ever conducted on the topic has found a clear link between firearm regulation and fewer gun-related deaths around the world. Hundreds of studies have been conducted in 10 different countries, including the U.S., Australia, Brazil, South Africa, and Austria. Each of the studies looked at some type of specific gun legislation change and its impacts. A recommendation would be to follow Australia's gun reform. After a mass shooting in Tasmania in 1996, Australia adopted comprehensive gun laws including gun registration, mandatory locked storage, a ban on mail order sales, and the banning of the semi-automatic rifles from civilian ownership. Since then, there have been no shootings where more than 5 people have died. Philip Alpers, co-author of a published study on conclusions of this, shared that Australia followed standard public health procedures to reduce the risk of multiple shooting events, and we can see the evidence. It worked. After analyzing over 100 studies, the researchers came to some conclusions. 1, it usually takes major legislation overhaul, not just one law, to see significant change. And 2, restricting guns and their purchase is associated with reductions of firearm deaths. In comparison to other countries, the U.S. stands alone when it comes to guns. The U.S. not only has the highest number of guns in the world, but we also have far more deaths than any other developed nation. As evident in this chart, the U.S. ranks the highest in gun homicide rate. This chart displays the amount of homicides by firearm per 1 million people. As you can see, the U.S. has almost 30 deaths per million people, while the second highest is Switzerland with only 7.7 deaths per million, and the least amount is Australia with only 1.4 per million. As previously stated, Australia was able to reduce their gun deaths through their new laws in 1996, along with their mandatory buyback programs. It is apparent that America needs gun reform in order to save lives and stop this massacre. Current research is clear. Americans may be divided on how to tackle firearm injuries and deaths, but there is no denying that our country has a problem unlike any other. Gun control does decrease gun deaths. Thank you.